How did you discover that Pelosi was then Speaker of the House was particularly successful?
Yeah, Pelosi. So Pelosi gets a lot of headlines for obvious reasons. One, millions, and massively outweighs what the other politicians are trading. And I'm talking like she's trading 50 to 60 million while everyone else is trading smaller amounts.
What?
When she got married, I think it was in 2012, and there's a whole arc for her. She got married in 2012 to Paul Pelosi, ex-VC.
No, she's been married to Paul Pelosi for decades.
Oh, has she? Then when they got married, I'm mixing up. 2012 is when the Stock Act started.
Right.
That's when they had to start showcasing it. When she got married to Paul, though, they were worth around 20 million, their net worth. Their net worth now is around 260 million. So you're 10xing that. How? She's been a career-long politician, making 175K. Her husband's very, very successful in stocks, particularly tech stocks. It all started with her in 2020 when she bought Tesla. And this is when I personally started paying attention. And then you look back and it's like, holy shit, this has been going on forever. And that actually started back in with the Visa IPO. So with the Visa IPO, she and her husband were able to get privileged ways to buy in on the IPO. And no one knows how, no one knows why. And then the stock absolutely crushed it. So that was brought up on a 60 Minutes interview. And that was that iconic interview from the reporter asking her, like, do you think this should be allowed? Is this fine that you got in on the Visa? And then, this is 10, 12 years ago. Nothing necessarily happened. Again, 2020 comes around, COVID. So people already necessarily know about her. She now starts trading stocks again, and it's getting blown up on social media because while everyone's with COVID, what are they doing? They're on social media and they're trading stocks. So now everyone's like acutely watching these things and paying attention. She, in end of 2020, right after Biden got elected, she went and bought up to $5 million of Tesla calls. And I can go on forever about the details of these things. She's not just buying stock. Well, her husband's not just buying. She's buying these things called leaps. And what a leap is a options contract that allows you to buy a stock and be bullish on a stock at a much cheaper cost basis. So instead of you needing $5 million to buy, X amount of quote unquote risk in a stock for it to go up, you can actually take that $5 million and buy a leap, and it gives you a broader delta so that you can make more money. Yeah. It's essentially higher risk, high reward. So she goes and she's buying these leaps. She's not just buying the stocks in them. She buys leaps in Tesla at the end of 2020, right after Biden got elected. 2021 comes around, 2019 into 2020, because that was when Biden started. There's so many dates. But when Biden's first few weeks in office, he introduces the Build Back Better 1.3, 2.3, whatever massive infrastructure bill. Yeah. Do you remember that one?
Very well.
Part of that bill had tons of not only subsidies for the electric vehicle industry, but also money to build out and invest for the charging ports for electric vehicles. Because, you can't just tell people to go buy electric cars.
Nowhere to
you need
charge
to have
them.
the infrastructure. Yeah. So when you start following the timeline on it, it's like, okay, Biden gets elected. She buys up to $5 million of leaps, which are very risky, in Tesla. That agenda then comes out. The stock flies 50%. So it's not like she's actually, buying things that the public wouldn't necessarily know about, but she's buying things in a high risky way with a ton of money in ways that the public now is paying attention to because, everyone's trading stocks and they're watching Tesla, Elon. That was when the thing started blowing up. And that was the first trade that probably I think re-triggered everyone's mind into wait a second, this may not be the sketchiest trade in the world because those things were still public, but how are they allowed to necessarily do that? How is Pelosi, the third most powerful person in America, president, VP, the House, the head speaker? Yep. They shouldn't be allowed to trade stocks. How is this even how are we allowing that? And I think the culmination of those different intersections is why this started getting big and why people started paying attention specifically to Pelosi.
How did she do on those leaps with Teslas?
So She was up around 50%, and then she sold a little bit, and then it came back down, and then she actually just sold those shares, because the way that a leap works is if you're buying a contract, and that gives you the ability to buy 100 shares of that underlying stock. It's pretty complex-ish, but so when she bought the leaps a year later, she exercises the right to buy those shares. So now she has, I think it was around like 5,000 shares of Tesla, and she's held those all up until July of 2024, this year actually. And she sold them too early. She sold them before Trump got reelected and the thing started flying. But I think she was up around 40 to 50% in total from that Tesla trade. Her best ones are Nvidia. Nvidia is a whole nother story for her. But on that Tesla one in particular, I think it was like 40 to 50.
When you sleep better, you live better, you feel better, and you live longer. Sleep is really important, but there's a lot acting against us who are trying to get a good sleep, starting with screen time. It scrambles your brain, makes it hard to sleep. So we're thinking a lot about sleep, not getting as much as we should. So a new partner we want to tell you about can help you. It's called Beam's Dream Powder, and it's made with a blend of all natural ingredients. It's not made by Pfizer. It's science-backed, it's American-built and run, and best of all, it legitimately tastes good. It can help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling amazing. Everybody in the staff loves it. No more tossing and turning during the night. No more groggy wake-ups, desperate for the coffee. We're not the only ones who use it. So many people have used Beam that has improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep. They're keeping track, helping Americans from all over the country wake up feeling good and ready to go. We're getting a huge discount, 47% off for this show. Try their best-selling Dream Power. Get 47% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com, shopbeam.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker at checkout and get a massive discount. We can't recommend this enough. Everyone here loves it. We think you will also. It's an American company, by the way. Awesome. What has she done on Nvidia?
So Nvidia is the second trade that got the masses' attention.
For people to know, tell us what Nvidia is.
Nvidia is a semiconductor. They're essentially the most popular stock and the best company. I think they're worth more than Apple now. They're the most valuable company in the world. They sell the chips for semis, and like they have a whole broader thing beyond just that. But essentially, they're a semiconductor company. They buy and sell chips. So in 2022, that's when the CHIPS Act, if you remember this $54 billion CHIPS bill that Biden and Pelosi pushed, she bought. And this is where social media, again, why it's powerful. And the pressure started building up to her at this point because people were following the trades. The markets were crushing it. She was crushing it in 2021. When 2022 came around, the CHIPS Act comes out, $54 billion of infrastructure for chips and subsidies for them. She bought Nvidia, I think, a couple months before that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. It's the problem with her is every trade is suspicious. There's never a trade that you just are like, okay, I could not. And I'll get into them without, there's a couple more I can get to. But with that Nvidia trade in particular, she bought it. The CHIPS Act comes out. We start making TikToks. We start tweeting about it. And then everyone's like, what the fuck? What's going on with that? She then sells it for a loss because the stock was already coming down. This was when the market started falling.
Yeah.
And she ended up selling it for a $300,000 loss. She sold it all. Because I think the public was starting to be like, what the fuck? Like, what? How are you doing this when we're already calling you out and you're still continuing to do it? She sold those things for a $300K loss. And then she sold her shares for a $200K loss. So she lost money on that first Nvidia time. But the interesting thing about that is, per these filings, and the way that the filings work is the Stock Act requires politicians to disclose them, their spouses, and their dependents of any trade up to 45 days. On that trade in particular is the only time she's ever publicly said her profit and loss. So never before, never since then, only in that filing was when she said, hey, everyone, I lost $250K in Nvidia, get off my back kind of thing. She's never done that for when she's profited. She's only done it when she's lost.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's so many things with her. The filings she sends out are always before holidays. So she's notorious in our community for releasing reports around Thanksgiving, July 4th, Christmas. And I think the argument is because, like, if you put it on December 23rd, everyone's going off to vacation.
Of course. Yeah, it gets lost. Yeah.
Gets lost in the media. Yeah.
Drop bad news on Fridays. That's the rule.
Exactly. Yeah. This year she dropped it on July 4th. That was when she dropped all of these previous drugs.
Happy birthday, America.
I know, yeah. But so that Nvidia trade goes on. She loses money. The whole market was doing bad in that year. So she didn't do too well in that, I think it was 2022. 2023 comes around, the market starts going up again, and we have all this information, which I could probably get to. But she then rebuys into Nvidia at the end of 2022, or at the end of 2023, excuse me, in November. She goes and buys $5 million worth of leaps again. Those leaps, then right after she buys, there's no laws or anything that comes up after that. It just turns out to be a tremendously well-timed trade, because from there, Nvidia goes up 160, 170%. And on that trade in particular, she then bought a little bit more. That $5 million, and the ranges are hard because the way that these filings work is they have to file from 1K to 15K is one little check. 15K to 50K, 50K to 100K, 100K to 250K, 250K to 500K, 500K up. So we're going off of the ranges. So you don't know the exact amount that she's buying, but that Nvidia trade is the best trade she's ever made that we've followed in recent memory. And she's up around like 140% on that trade in particular.
Damn.
And like, this is millions. It's not like it's, 50K. It's up to $5 million. That $5 million could be worth $7.5 million now. And she's just quiet about it. Doesn't say anything when we call her out.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.